Welcome back to Podcast Recovery, everyone. We are your hosts, David O.
And Eric B.
Today we are joined by our special guest, Dan. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing well, man.
Good.
Doing well.
Good.
I'm a little hot, but
You're
well,
came in here with some fire.
a little bit feisty, but that's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine. Where are you from, Dan?
So I am from Houston, Texas.
Cool.
Nice.
Is this our first Texan?
No.
Really?
Nope.
Okay, if you say so. All right. When were you first introduced to recovery, Dan?
So, that's a good question. Real early on, my mother was in recovery through Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, as a kid, I didn't know that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But funny, you realize this is when you become a member that all those sayings Mom said. There's that's where she got that from. So early on, I was kind of introduced to the language at least. I heard if nothing changes since I was a child, I think. I lived with my dad's stepmother in Texas, and my mother lived in Tennessee. So it wasn't like she raised me in the program by any means. But I did hear that language long before I ever made it there. And I guess for my personal journey, I can remember I was forced to go once. It's been so long ago, 10 years, a little over 10 years I've been sober. August was 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I probably started trying 7 to 10 years prior. So, anywhere from 15 to 20 years ago was my first introduction.
Nice. Cool. All right. And how long have you been sober?
So I've been sober a little over 10 years. August of 2019 was 10 years.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, Thank you. I appreciate it. It's given me a life I never thought I could have.
Yeah, man. And with all that out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your story with us, so take it away.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys, and I appreciate what you guys are doing, man, to help everybody, across state lines just share the word. So it's a good thing.
Thanks, man.
It's through stories that, and I don't mean war stories, but through that experience, strength, and hope that, we gain knowledge. And if it wasn't for other guys sharing that with me, I don't know that I'd be doing what I'm doing now. And, my very first meeting was a speaker meeting. Nervous, all that, and it turned out to be a great dude that I love to death this day, a guy named Kevin Thompson, who I just respect the most. But, me, like a lot of people, I grew up in a fairly traumatic household, but I didn't know it was traumatic. It was just normal behavior as far as I knew. As a kid, I didn't ask my friends, hey, what's your family like?
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed, I knew it was different. I knew I felt different, and that seems to be my theme is it just felt different, man. And I can't put my finger on exactly like what it was growing up. I just felt different than everybody. And, like I grew up in, like I said, a fairly traumatic household. Dad was a Vietnam veteran who, he grew up without a dad himself. And let's just put it mildly and say he had some anger issues. But I didn't know that at the time. I just knew Dad, and that's how Dad was. And that's, that's just what you know. And I don't blame, that for anything, because overall I had a decent childhood. But it just is, it adds to, that's all. And I can remember I was telling someone on another podcast the other day this exact story of, I remember the first time I drank like it was yesterday. And that's 10 years sober, 47 years old, and I remember it and this was in junior high. Now I couldn't tell you who I hung out with, the people's names, I couldn't tell you some of the girlfriends I had, but I can tell you that moment exactly. And, that was something, although I got sick, and it was overall pretty unpleasant, to put it mildly, but at the same time, it was a sense of immediate acceptance, and not only with others, but myself. So it allowed me to be accepted with other people, and therefore I found a little bit of acceptance in self. Not a lot, but a little bit, and that's what I needed. Mm-hmm. And it's just, if anybody's familiar with the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not what they call a big book thumper, but I will tell you that book has some merit, at least in my life. And it told me exactly what was going to happen if I went back out after I sobered up. But had I known, that book is 100% accurate when it says it gets worse, never better. Because it's progressive. And that's exactly what happened. Looking back, it was I didn't start living life till I was 37 years old. Let me put it that way. It was just, I drank and used dope for about 25 years. And it was, to say I didn't have some fun times, I'd be lying to you, right? It was fun in the beginning. I'd say 3 or 4 of those years were pretty okay. And it worked till it didn't, is the best way I can describe it. And then once it didn't, yeah, there were still a few fun moments in there, but it was anything, I used to call it partying all the time, but it was anything but a party.
Yeah.
It was pretty rough. It was a rough existence. I was always out of control. I hung out with people that got out of control. It just was, I wasn't a very good human being. Like, I knew a good human being existed in there. Like, it was peeking over the counter, kind of, so to speak, right? Like, I knew he was there. I just couldn't. I was just like my old man. I was angry and I was bitter, and I just didn't understand why, if there was a God, that they made me this way, right? That it made everybody see like, don't you don't want to live like that. Well, no, of course not. Who does, right? Didn't know how to change. Didn't know what to change. Just knew that I was miserable. And the beast is like being in a hamster wheel. You drink and you lose, and you get, it just exacerbates the problem. And then you feel more guilt and shame, and you just keep digging a hole, right? And it's just, by the time you're able to stop and catch a breath, you've dug such a deep hole that you almost can't see the light of day, right? And that's kind of where I was at. It was just everything I did revolved around drinking or using. I'll tell you a story about the Rockets game. So the Houston Rockets, the basketball team, I used to go to quite a few games. I had an old boss that had season tickets for a million years, and so he would give us, all the employees, the games he didn't want to go to. We went to a lot of games, right? Let's just say they knew the dude, right? And because he was there for 20 years, literally, in the same seats. And so we would go, and I joke and say, I only half joke and say, I didn't realize there was a second half to the game, because they quit serving alcohol in the third quarter, right, the end of the third quarter. So I would start panicking after halftime and be like, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to get drinks, right? And he'd be like, dude, just calm down. You've never been let down. They know me. They'll bring us 4 or 5. And they did every single time. And every single time I panicked just the same, right? But once you got those, you think, okay, good, I can sit and watch the last quarter. No, it was, where are we going after the game?
Yeah.
It was just, it was focused on all the wrong places. Like, I've been to some exciting games, but I missed out on half of them. It was, and I only say that half joking. That was my mindset, was never satisfied with where I was at. What's next? And it just was a disaster more than it wasn't, especially the last decade or so. I didn't have when people talk about hitting rock bottom, as a clinician, I encourage that you don't have to do that. And in my personal experiences, every day was a bottom, and it could always get worse. And that's the thing. I never asked that question, what else could happen? I stopped asking that a long time ago, because I found out every time. It's a mindset like no other. I was talking with somebody, a client, in fact, about that mental obsession. And I just, when I talk to families and I talk to spouses and even children, that it's really hard to put that into the proper words. If you've never experienced that, I don't know how to give you that. I can give you a lot of things, but to actually do that justice, it's unless you've experienced that mental obsession, you can't really describe that to someone, I don't think, not accurately anyway. That was the most brutal piece to changing my life, was that mental obsession. It's just, man, that's a mother. Let's put it that way. For me, it became an identity. I didn't like who I was. I was uncomfortable with who I was. So I drank and used to try to escape that uncomfortability, only to be made more uncomfortable. You list all the things you're trying to accomplish. Like, when I list the feelings I have due to sobriety, the joy, the peace, the acceptance, these things, those are things I was striving to gain by using. The problem is I missed the mark on all that. And just, again, it's that hamster wheel. And I'm looking at it. It's like the carrot in front of me. I can see it. It's what I'm trying to get by using. But then when I use it, just makes me feel all the things I'm trying to escape. And it's a nasty cycle, right? So at some point, I just got tired of being tired. And I know people hear that and say that all the time. But it's just, I had an experience where my father had passed in 93, and my family hadn't been together in some time since. And in 2009, they decided to rent some beach houses in Galveston, and everybody was going to get together. It was going to be a great thing. And then, just as it talks about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's like the businessman, right? Where I may not have found myself beating on a bar top, but I started eating pills. Like, I've been drinking. That was all a constant. As if that wasn't enough trouble, right? Why couldn't you wait the 2 weeks? This is the biggest event your family's had in 20 years, right? No rhyme or reason, just 2 weeks prior, off to the races. It did not end well, let's put it that way. And it wasn't the worst thing that's ever happened in my life, but it ranks right up there. But it was the last, as far as, I drank for a few more weeks after that. I was in a marriage that well, I'll get to that in a minute, I guess. But it was just, the whole thing was no good. And that's when I sobered up. I had married a lady that I had met in AA, which they tell you don't do, and I'm living proof, don't do it. It's nobody understands me like she does. And it was great when it was great, and it went bad. It went real bad. Unfortunately, to this day, I don't know if she's sober. We started using together, and the train came off the tracks. In that process, what it taught me was the fun word codependency. That's the first time I'd ever heard that word, and I realized with the alcoholism and the drug use, it was pretty rampant in my life, and I needed a change, and so I got a change, and that was one of those things that I really went through it, meaning I mourned the relationship, meaning I mourned the idea of being married, the idea of having a partner that's in recovery, and all those things, right? It wasn't really the relationship, because we didn't even like each other, so it wasn't that. The whole thing was just built on sickness, man, honestly, and so after, through that process, though, of getting sober, I painted houses for about 20 years, ran my own company for about 9, and then I got some health issues, and I had to shut my business down. And just by happenstance, somebody opened up a community college book full of classes right to the drug and alcohol counselor. Well, I just knew I'd been trying in and out of AA for some time, and I knew something was different this time. That's all I can tell you. I know people say that every day. I work with them. But the reality is, hopefully 10.5 years later shows I was right there. Something was different. I share this story about dropping out of high school in the 10th grade, and I'm about, 2 weeks away from a master's degree in professional counseling, but it's all due to sobriety. I got sober in August 2010, 2009, and then in January 2010, that's what it is, I enrolled in school in a community college. I met some professors that were in the program that I love dearly to this day, a guy named Steve Lewis and Glenn Killian. They changed my life. I was able to become a counselor, what's called an LCDC here in Houston. It's a licensed chemical dependency counselor. And I went to work for a treatment center. I worked there for about 9 years, and I became a certified clinical supervisor in the state of Texas, which just means I can train new interns. But this is all due to sobriety, man. I just can't. I can't stress that enough. Without that sobriety piece and finding my identity through recovery, I don't know where I'd be. I have an idea, but it's nowhere sitting here talking to you guys. Good stuff. It was just I worked a program like they told me to do. Now I fought it tooth and nail along the way, looking back, but I kept coming. I kept doing it. I took suggestions. And I actually put it to practice. I find it amazing that guys can come into a detox unit and spout the big book out to me. Hey, Dan, do you know what page such and such paragraph, such and such line 2 says. I'm like, no. But they say it to me, and I said, that's good and great, except for here you sit. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's one thing, my point is, it's one thing to have that knowledge, and it's semi-impressive, right? I don't know it, but it's another to apply it in your everyday life, right? So I got to a place where I was almost forced into recovery, meaning I was out of options. The people I hung out with were out of control just the same as I was. And when they're telling you, hey, dude, we can't hang out anymore, it's not good. Like when the dope man's telling you to go home, the bars are telling you, we don't want you back. What do you do, right? So I couldn't hang out in that world anymore. I didn't want to be with sober people anymore because that would be weird. And I certainly didn't want to be in a 12-step group. Like, no, it's a large group of people no one wants to be a part of, right? But I said, these are my options. I'm going to dive in. And so it wasn't quite that simple, but eventually I got there and became that person. And in becoming that person in AA, I then found who Dan was, right? And that I owe that program my life for, that piece alone. Now, look, do I still get upset at things? Sure, my wife will tell you that. My daughter will tell you that, I'm sure. I'm human, right? I don't know that, do I still have finance problems and work with everyday problems like everyone? Sure. But the program never promised me that. The program promised me I would intuitively be able to handle those situations that I never could handle before. And to that point, that program is 100% on point. Mm-hmm. So, I have nothing but love. I don't think it's a perfect program. None of them. I think they all have faults. But I will say this. I do believe there's merit in that program. Mm-hmm. The big book talks about an allergy. Research has since caught up to that. So, addictions in the midbrain or the instinctual part of the brain. We know this, right? So that's something that we're talking about in 1939. They didn't know the research necessarily. They just said, holy shit, I drink this and this is what happens. And every time I drink this is what happens. It's not, there seems to be a link here. I do believe they got it 100% right there. And I also believe they got it right when they said alcohol is just a symptom of what's going on, right? So if that's the case, so is shooting dope, so is overeating, so is, relationships, whatever we choose to use to change the way we feel rather than to face what we're feeling. And I've always carried that true with that. And I will tell you this, in my last course for my master's class, it ends Friday actually, is a substance use course. Save the easiest for last, I guess, right? But I'm going through it. And the professor, phenomenal professor, she had us do an exercise. A lot of these folks are not in recovery. And she made them give up something. Let us all give up something that was significant to us, right? Give it up for the 8 weeks. That's how long the course is. And we're going to journal about it, share about it, whatever, right? And I gave up Red Bull and soft drinks, which might not sound like a big deal to a lot of people, but everything I do, okay, right? Yep. Like everything I do in my life, I do it too much, right? I drank too much of them. It's just out of control. And I thought, well, this is stupid, but I'll play along. I've been looking for a reason to cut back, quit, whatever. First week, no problem. I'm like, this is silly, man. I don't even know what I'm going to write. By the second week, I pulled up to get gas, which is also where I bought, Coke Zeros or Red Bulls. And all of a sudden, these old behaviors just slam me like a ton of bricks. I find myself having an inner dialogue of, well, just go get a Coke, man, or a Red Bull. It's no big deal. It's a freaking Coke, man. Who cares? I'm having this internal dialogue like I used to have when I drank. Yep. And I'm like, dude, where did this come from? Like, you're a counselor. You've been in recovery 10 years. Like, you're not supposed to have these behaviors. I was just both fascinated and just dumbfounded at how quickly those behaviors returned. Luckily it was something so significant, or insignificant, I should say, that it didn't make as much of an impact. And I guess I have a little self-awareness. I can kind of chuckle at it, but it's amazing. It just really, the book says we can't rest on our laurels, for if we do, alcohol is a subtle foe. And I've always liked that piece of that, because what that says to me is I got to do some stuff every day for my recovery. It may be different than what you're doing for your recovery, but I got to do something for my recovery every day. Or that thing's just right there at all times. And I don't say that to be in fear of it. I don't say that to live in fear, because I live my life, man. I go where I want to go and I do what I want to do. Now, there was a time I couldn't do that, because I was terrified. But I put the work in on the front end, and I really engaged with the sponsor and the process and did things I didn't want to do, and life's just been good to me since. Like I said, it's just, they always said if you could make a list, you'd sell yourself short. And I was always that smart ass that was like, okay, I got a pretty good list. I don't know. But I know what they mean today by that. Again, it's not that I'm, financially set for the rest of my life or those kinds of things. In fact, it has nothing to do with any of that. It's the fact that I don't have to lose my mind over the silliest of things today. I don't have to. More importantly than that, I'm okay with me. And if you're not, that's okay too. Like, it's cool with me. I don't. Of course, we want people to like us and all of those things. That's fine. But I treat people right. Not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay. It's just, and that's where I'm at today with it. It's a pretty good place to be.
All right. We definitely have some questions for you. Would you like to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Go ahead, David.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Take it away.
That sounded...
Go ahead.
Gee, no, I don't want to. Okay. I think we all do this, and I think it's a common thread through a lot of people's stories, is the quote unquote partying. So do you think that in our minds, when we call it partying, is that just really a means of self-denial?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, because what are you going to call it? I'm going to the bar to destroy some more of my life, or let's see what's going to happen tonight. And I think really partly denial, but also partly, we're very good. And I say we, I'm talking just the obvious generalization of people I've known or worked with in this last 10 years in recovery. Is I think in our minds we romance the few years that it was a party. It was cool. It was fun, and it was, I felt okay. I laughed a lot. I didn't go to jail. I didn't have DUIs. I didn't get, relationships weren't destroyed. Families weren't pissed off. It was, and I think that left such an impression that I think I'm just rationalizing and justifying that, and that's why I think I use that term partying, because like I said, it hadn't been a party. So I think both, a little bit of denial, because we know, I think most people, when they reach that point, they know you're not partying past high school too much. I don't think,
Yeah.
I want to say this. I'm not anti-alcohol by any means.
No.
I think we say in the industry here in Texas, at least, there's a doctor named Dr. Degner who quoted that 85% of the world can drink regular. 15% of us can't. So if you're one of those 85 men, knock yourself out. I got no issue with that at all. Like, that's cool. Do it. My wife has a glass of wine occasionally. You know why? Because she can. That's why, right? She doesn't get out of control. She doesn't get drunk. She doesn't cause problems. It's not an issue for her. For me, I'm that 15%, and that's a step one issue. I know who I am and what happens when I do that. So denial, yes, but I think it's just this rationalization and this holdout for almost hope that I'm living in this fantasy of that's what it was.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. It's like that one girlfriend that nobody else can compare to, right? Like, or that one partner or whatever you have. Like if that one relationship that you just can't, like, everything compares to that one. You're like, dude, you were 17. Like, seriously, nothing's good. You're 47. That's not how life works today. You have different lens to look through.
Yep.
That kind of thing. It's similar.
Yeah, that type of thinking. It's always distorted. Like, it's and at least for me, it's like a super toxic relationship where like from the outside, it's like, dude, that was a shit show. But it's like, no, but I remember all the good times and it wasn't that bad. And it's like, yeah, it was.
It absolutely wasn't that bad. It was worse.
Yeah. Yep.
Shit show is the exact how I would describe it, my life.
Yep.
That before recovery.
Yep.
Even partially in recovery for that matter. But
yeah,
it was. Let's just say it's less of one today.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Eric?
But you do.
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say you're 100% right with the. It's you use the term. It's like a bad relationship. I used the word codependent earlier, and it's like, I know this is no good for me, but I'm not leaving it.
Yeah.
It's nothing about it is good. It's like, I can't freaking stand you, but I'm not leaving you. I don't want somebody else to have that either. So what sense does that make? Yet we hang on to this thing. It's like, it's the craziest thing.
All right. So you mentioned earlier about the giving up Red Bull and soft drinks. And I haven't, I haven't had high fructose corn syrup in almost 2 years. And I haven't drank like a Red Bull or a Monster or anything like that for like 2.5 years. So I guess, in what ways has addiction manifested itself in your life outside of the drugs and the alcohol since entering recovery?
That's a great question. In every way. Every way, my whole way of thinking is still, like I said, I had that internal dialogue after a week of no Coke Zeros, and I find myself rationalizing and justifying just as I would when I was using dope, right, or drinking. Yeah. Like, it's just a Coke. I was telling myself it's just Coke Zero, not even a real Coke. Like,
it doesn't have any sugar, right? You're fine.
How ridiculous is that, right? That is, if that's not addiction, addictive behavior, I don't know what it is, man. Like, it's really, I still have to catch myself, and I'm consistently now. Let me back up a second. It's not all bad.
Yeah.
So meaning the way recovery and addiction / recovery also manifests myself in my life is I'm always looking for my part. Right. If I get upset at something, I'm quick to bounce it off someone, and then I look for my peace and make it right. So in that sense, it's still, it's an everyday piece, but I'm still, I still sometimes I would tell people, that as much harm as it's caused and as much nonsense and damage it's done in my family, there's still a small piece of me somewhere that says, dude, if I could drink or use dope today without consequence, I'd sign me up, man. I'd do it. But here's my step one at work, because I know that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I know myself. I know those behaviors. I'm arguing over a Coke or a Coke Zero. I think about that today. I was drinking, right? So someone said in a group one time, I'll never forget this, a dear colleague of mine named Lisa Theismann, who passed away, said this, and I'll never forget it, and it makes me laugh, and it's very real. Someone was in group many years back, and they said, it was a young person, and they said, they got all these new vodkas out that I'm never even going to get their flavored, and I'm never going to get to see what they taste like. And she said, they taste like shame and regret. That's what they taste like.
I like it.
I love it, right? Because here you are sitting in an IOP group. Yeah, you might not really think that. But I always laugh at that. And I think, but I do catch myself at times going, well, I've just had to redefine. Here's another way. I've had to redefine my definitions, and I ask my clients to do this as well. Like, I was talking to a gentleman just today, in fact, about this. Like, what is normal? He said, he had a return to use, and he was feeling pretty shitty about it, as you can imagine. And he said, I just went to some friends, and my intent wasn't to drink. I just wanted to be normal. I said, well, I don't drink, and that's normal, right? When do you get to that place where that's normal for you, right? And he got it the best he could, but it's about redefining what is normal. Because for the first 2 years of my sobriety, that wasn't normal either, right? It took some time to really manifest in my life and say, this is my normal, and you know what? That's cool. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I actually kind of want to go with that. Like follow like a little bit farther down this trail, because it brought something up to me. Is our normal, and like also our like reservation, like that guy was talking about with like the new flavors of vodka that I haven't tried yet. Like, so is our normal, and is it, how much is it tied into our desire to be people that are around us, like it, be able to do what other people can do? Is it about like comparing ourselves to others, and like and like how dangerous is that for like the sake of reservations, or even like possible relapse, constantly looking at other people, and basically trying to make their normal our normal?
Sure, and that's dangerous, man, because, especially if they're one of those 85%, they can do those things, quote unquote, normally, right? I can't. And it's a step one issue for me. And I know it's not always that simple. There's a lot of times there's mental health issues and on and on. I don't want to really go down that road just yet, but there's a ton of factors for each of us. And it's real easy for the guy in AA, NACA, AAA, NBA, fucking A, whichever one you're a part of, right? Like, it's super easy for them to say, just stop. Just don't do this. Stop comparing yourself. Just, you're this, and this. Well, that's fine for the dude sitting there with 15, 20 years, right, who's worked a program. But when you got someone with less than a year who's on that roller coaster of, I just don't know what to do. Yeah, of course you've lived a lifestyle, in my case, more than half my life. How do you expect someone that's done that? And it is a lifestyle. The drinking and the using dope is just a small piece of that lifestyle, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was exciting to be at the bar, even though I knew I shouldn't have been there. It was exciting to be at the dope man's, even though I shouldn't have been there. It was exciting to be in all those places I shouldn't have been, right? But the reality is that was my normal. And so now, looking at everybody else, sure, there was a long period of time I was angry, and that was dangerous for me. It kept me miserable, even in sobriety, of, these guys can do it. Why? I was super pissed off that I couldn't drink. But, AA addresses that. They say the great obsession of every abnormal drinker is that they can one day drink like a regular person. Well, my own experience, not AA's, not NA's, not my counselors, not my therapist, not any of those people, not a doctor. No one has told me more than I've told my own experience shows me I can't do that. I've tried time and time and time again. And I'll be honest, out of 1,000 times I tried to quit, I meant it 950 of them, right? That this was going to be it. I wasn't going to do this again, to find myself 2 hours later, just like the businessman in the big book. What the hell? What am I doing? Mm-hmm. Right? And so, with low self-esteem, angry temperament, abusive in every relationship you've been in, just the whole thing is just so when it is very unhealthy to compare. But what else do you do in early recovery? That's why we say hang out with other people in recovery. Yeah. It's to be around like-minded people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, Eric, what you got?
So kind of, let's see. So I guess with you being a counselor, one of the things I've been kind of looking at lately is just different forms of recovery and different, I did counseling a lot. When I was first getting, God, it's been a while now, but, when I was first getting clean a long time ago, did a lot of counseling with therapists and psychiatrists and counselors. What is one of your favorite exercises to give a patient?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I have so many I love to do, oh, wow. So I'll tell you, as an IOP I worked at this place called Memorial Hermann Park, which is a treatment center here in Houston. I worked there for about 9 years. I went from one end of the spectrum to the other. I was a detox counselor for the first 2 or 3 years, and I was an IOP counselor for the last couple of years, an intensive outpatient. And one of my favorite assignments, so I'm going to take this as a compliment, I guess. One of the kids told me, or the young people, I shouldn't say kids, one of the young adults told me, "You're like the dad that gets us on the weekends, man," because I guess that was good. Because I like to do all the experiential stuff, right? Like anybody can lecture. I hated lecturing. It's just not my style, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I used to order these white plastic masks, and I would do an assignment, called the mask. Imagine that. And, basically what we would have them do is take magazines, and I always got plenty of those donated to us. And on the front side of this mask, I want you to put what you present to the world, like what you want me to see. Mm. Right? On the inside of this mask, I want you to put what you really feel. And even the big old country boys that were older, they turned their nose up. I don't want to do this damn assignment. I'm not an artist, blah, blah, blah. Right? Okay, I hear you. But part of the process is I was just asking them to trust me and trust in the process and humor me and just start looking through some things. And that's part of the process, is feeling those feelings of what am I doing. And then where it really got awesome to me was we shared that in group. Like we would check in, we'd go to the break after we made them, we'd come back, and they would all check in how they're feeling, name, date, sobriety date, that kind of stuff. And then they would present their mask. And what they realized in presenting that mask is every one of them were, they could have been twins, all of them. They were the same, right? I want to present to you that I have my stuff together, that things are going well, that I'm cool, I'm this, I'm that. On the inside, I'm falling apart, man. Mm-hmm. And I'm insecure, I'm abusive, I'm angry. You just see all these things, and to hear people share those things and get feedback, positive feedback about, how their peers see them. Not me as a counselor, as their peers see them. Dude, I'm telling you, that is powerful. I'm a group therapy guy. I love it. I think it works well for people in recovery from drugs and alcohol. Don't get me wrong. There's groups where it was like pulling teeth to get people to commit. But once they did, and you get an exercise like that brings them together and bonds them, I'm telling you, man, it'll make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Mm-hmm. Nice. So the mask is probably my favorite one.
Mm. Yeah. That's a good question, Eric.
There's one more thing. There's an assignment there's a lady named Claudia Black, who is I don't want to use the term guru, but I will because I don't have a better one. But she is considered a guru in the recovery family industry. She works at she has a program at one of the treatment centers called the Meadows, and I believe it's Arizona, but don't get me, I might be wrong there. But all that said, is she's written multiple books, and she has these workbooks, and one is called a Relapse Toolkit. And there's an assignment in there that's called Overconfidence. Phenomenal. Man, she calls them the 4 horsemen. There's 4 things she asks you to identify. One is calling your own shots. One is examples of inability to hear what others are saying. The third is contempt prior to investigation. And then the fourth is wanting immediate results with unrealistic expectations. And it's phenomenal when these guys get to giving their examples. What happened, what was the consequence. And it's really eye-opening for them to see, some of the examples it gives. Like, for example, sponsor told me not to go to the party. I went anyway. Didn't necessarily use, but I found myself craving after. Mm-hmm. Just real-world examples of this is, that goes back to what you were asking about being normal and comparing yourselves, because so many times we want to go to the party. We just want to be normal. We want to go to the party, but we have to change what is our normal.
Yeah.
It all ties in together.
Yeah. I have a question. As for you, like as a counselor, how much do you stress to new people in recovery, or just people in recovery in general? Because sometimes we like to have short memories and we forget it, that recovery is actually work. and you have to, and it's continuous work. Like how can we like stress that to people? Because one of my favorite quotes that I read a little while ago is don't be upset with the results that you don't get from the work that you didn't do. And like I love that quote. It's amazing because I see a lot of these people who are kind of retreads, and they keep doing the same shit and same shit. They never work a step. They constantly have the same problems. They don't address them. They don't do this. They don't do that. And it's like, hey, it's work, buddy, and like nobody else can do it for you but you. So how much do you stress that to a newcomer or anybody in recovery that kind of needs to put their nose to the grindstone?
So 100%. That is, I love that quote, by the way. It's pretty awesome. I'll tell you a quote I really love is success is never owned, it's rented, and the rent's due every day.
Damn.
Right? If I want to be successful, I better do some stuff.
I love that.
And because success is never owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day. And it's so true, especially in this recovery, because really it's true across the board in anything we do. You know, recovery is no different than anything else you want. I wanted this master's degree, so what did I have to do? I had to work every day for it, right? I had to sacrifice finances. I had to sacrifice, times out with my family while I was writing papers or whatever the case may be. So it's not even just recovery. It's life. If you want something, it doesn't come to you. I mean, there may be those instances, sure, but overall, it takes work, and recovery is certainly no different. Just because you quit drinking or using dope, and look, I give the biggest props to anyone that could at least get that piece started.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because in the beginning, that's the devil, man. That's the worst. Right? But once you get past that piece, that then becomes the least of the problem, right? So they say here, I've heard so many times over the years, if you sober up a car thief, what do you have? You have a sober car thief, right?
Yeah.
So if I don't change my behaviors, what's the purpose of not drinking, right? I mean, I have to. So at that, I didn't get here overnight. I'm certainly not going to change that now. And I do want to say, I mentioned earlier the word mental health. This is where that matters, right? Because so much there's what we call co-occurring diagnosis. And I don't know very many substance users or alcoholics or whatever you choose to throw the label out at, people that use or don't, right?
Yep.
I don't care about the labels, right? To me, it's either use or I don't. And it causes me problems or it doesn't, right? So when you have a mental health condition, though, I've never met somebody that uses and didn't have some of the others. Right? It may not rise to what we call a disorder, but we all have depressive symptoms. We all have anxiety of some kind. We all have some kind of symptoms that probably would mirror some bipolar in some way. And I don't mean all of us, certainly, but most people that are using or drinking to excess have that. Right? And when you stop drinking and doing that, and if you're too proud to go to a psychiatrist or to a doctor or to a counselor or a therapist or whoever to treat that, what do you think happens in those cases? That mental health rears its ugly head and goes into overdrive, right? And you're wondering why you can't get through this sobriety thing, which is it's excruciating on its own in the beginning. Try to just find your way.
Oh yeah.
You know, you get so many conflicting points of view, and let's be honest, people in 12-step recovery rooms, I love them dearly. They saved my life, but there's some opinionated folks, and they're not always right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality.
Share
right?
that
Don't
shit.
get me wrong. Again, they saved my life, and I got nothing but love, but I'm just trying to speak the truth.
Yep. And
they want you to do it their way, and it's their way or the highway. And you know, the reality is be smart about your self-care. And so yeah, in other words, I'd encourage people to what I do, what I've seen work the most over 10 years, and I don't care who agrees or who doesn't, is what my experience has been is get into a treatment center if that's where you need, stay involved with that, develop some relationships, get into a 12-step program or some kind of recovery program, smart recovery, whatever it is that works for you. Right? See a therapist, work through some of those underlying issues, work through some of the navigation of just being on a 12-step program.
Yep.
You know, get a psychiatrist if you need medications, and stay on top of that for a year to 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise you, if you do that, more people succeed than don't. That's the reality. But people start feeling good, and I don't think they do this intentionally, a lot of them. They just start feeling good. So, I'm going to miss this week with my therapist or this week with my sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
One becomes 3, and things are going well. It's okay. And then the shoe drops, and it's just what I find myself at a friend's house for no apparent reason who I know uses. It's that. So I am very hardcore about doing something every day. And do it till it till it doesn't work, and then do something else.
Yep.
It's something that needs to be evaluated along the way. It should change along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I'm doing the same thing I did in the first year at 10 years, that might be an issue for me. Now, some of the basics, there's a basketball player named Tim Duncan from the San Antonio Spurs. He retired years ago, but they used to call the dude the big fundamental, right?
Yep.
I like to refer to him often because, look, get these fundamentals of this program down, because that's what's going to save your life. You can work on the fancy stuff with the therapist and as you go along in your program, but let's just get the fundamentals of not drinking and not going insane because I'm not drinking in the beginning. If I can stick to those basic principles of treat people right, keep my side of the street clean, as they say, and don't stir up a bunch of shit, I'm probably doing okay.
Nice.
Right? But that's the fundamentals of a recovery program. My slogan in my counseling practice is discover your pathway to recovery, because your pathway might not be mine, right? But let's find it together. Whatever it is, you got to do something. Again, that rinse, do every day.
I love that.
So yeah, I'm a big proponent of work.
I literally just tweeted that quote. I was listening and I was like, I got to tweet that quote. That was just so bomb.
Well, I wish it was mine, but I don't know where I came from. I don't remember.
We're calling it yours now, buddy.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let me give you one more of my favorites, and it's there's a guy named Viktor Frankl who was in Auschwitz, survived Auschwitz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He invented a thing. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And I've talked about this in every podcast. This is really, I was talking about finding identity earlier, and how recovery gave me that identity. And he has a quote that says, "He who has a why can live through any how."
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I dig that, because this recovery gave me a purpose. For 37 years of my life, I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all I knew is my life was a disaster, and everywhere I went, I made their life a disaster, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most likely they were already a disaster if they were hanging out with me, but nonetheless, I added to that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't until I got sober that I found that purpose. And when I found that purpose, I'm able to give that purpose away and live that purpose. And that's to help other people who have the same insecurities, the same fears, the same just family of origin issues. Like I was talking to a dude today who's never been to therapy. I would describe him as just a good old boy, good old country boy, right? He just said, we didn't talk about this stuff. Like, I feel weird even sitting here. And I'm like, I get it, man. We didn't even have a rug to sleep it under. So, we didn't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we were just raised that way. And now we tell you to come in this recovery and talk to these other people. So it's man, I get going on this. It's really given me a purpose to. That's why I reached out to you guys as well, because, anybody that's willing to spread the love, man, sometimes in a particular region or a particular area, it's good to hear somebody from the outside. Hey, they stay sober in New York too, or they stay sober in Seattle too, or across the country. It's fascinating to me that hurt is hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what part of the country you're in, and if you're hurt and you lack self-awareness and self-reliance and you're insecure, that's a pretty common theme of what we do.
Oh, I know. Great.
Yeah, man. Good stuff.
Can I drop one more quote real quick?
Go ahead,
Please.
David.
Yes. I can't remember where I found this, but this was something in early recovery that was really poignant to me. And the quote is, "Once you awaken from the dream, you'll never sleep so soundly again." And I was like, oh man. Once I thought that, because it's true. Like once that clean time like came to me and like my recovery truly began, my thinking and my behavior would never be the same, in a great way.
That's true, man. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's really good. I have an Instagram page where that's all I do is put like, little cheesy quotes. But I'll tell you what
they're powerful, man.
Exactly. Like, the cliches are cliche for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And what I tell people that I work with, and I just tell them I didn't learn this in a book. I didn't learn this at school. Don't get me wrong. I love my education, and I learned a lot through that education process. But this came strictly from, I got tired of hearing people one day at a time, think, and then another person would say, no, don't think. Like, which is it, right? So I would hear all these sayings, right? And I thought, that is the most ridiculous sounding thing. You hear how you sound? I'm thinking, of course, new in the program, not really knowing. And then it occurred to me, like, I was talking with a sponsor who didn't really pull any punches, so to speak. And he just said, look, dude, you better figure out a way to learn what these sayings mean and how they apply to you. That changed my life, man, because when I understood what one living one day at a time truly meant in my life, it changed that whole phrase to me, because I was a smart ass that was like, hey, tell that to the light company when they call. I'm going to tell them, sorry, guys, one day at a time. Today's not your day. See if they don't shut my lights off.
Yeah.
Right? And that's was my thought at 37, new in recovery. Listen, no, I realize today that, of course, we think about the future. Of course, we set goals. Of course, we do those things looking forward to better ourselves and our families. But what can I do about it today? If there's something I can do about it, I'm going to take that action, and I am all about action. This program, life in general, is about action. I can sit on my couch and say, this sucks, I can't do anything about it, or I can take some action and say, this isn't exactly ideal or what I want to do, but it's better than the alternative. Mm-hmm. And I can do something, right? So I'm all about action.
Cool.
Yeah, man. Good stuff.
So my next question, I've been kind of like curious about people's spirituality as they evolve in their recovery and kind of go on their journey. So how has your spirituality changed since entering recovery?
Dude, what a great question. So this is an easy one for me. I went from one extreme to the other. I didn't have any spirituality before I joined AA or 12-step program. I didn't have any. My dad made me go to this Baptist church when I was a child. And you know what I remember about it? I remember one of the dudes on the bus that we took swallowing a goldfish. That's what I remember about that, right? I like to say I believed just in case. I was a just in case, right? Like just in case some stuff happened, man, I wanted to have a leg in, right? Outside of that, no. How can you believe in a God that allows you to live the life you're living that miserable for that long? For me, I couldn't. What I did believe in, I said, just in case, I had a toe in the water, but also had a fist in the air. Mad as hell, man. Like, if you are there, fuck you. Excuse my language, but how could you let me live this way?
Yeah.
Right? I'm about to graduate from a Christian university. That's how far it's come. So that doesn't mean that's for everybody, and I ended up there totally... well, just pardon the pun, but by God, it's a God thing. But I will, if we have a minute, I do want to tell you this story. It's pretty awesome. I mentioned a dude named Kevin Thompson earlier. And this dude taught me everything that got me started on spirituality. He's a Native American dude, and he was my first sponsor. And I'm talking full-blown medicine bag, like deerskin pants, like the whole thing, right? He's an awesome dude, man. And he just said, look, I said, Kevin.
Send him our way. I want him on the podcast.
Absolutely. I said, Kevin, I feel silly, man, when I have to get down and pray. I said, I feel like I have to start saying thee and thou and stuff that's just foreign to me and silly to me. And he just kind of chuckled. He's like, well, dude, we look up to our Creator. Right. He said, the best thing he told me was we live our life in prayer, meaning the way we live. Again, we treat people good. we take care of ourselves, and we just live, right? And we help others. That is our prayer to our Creator. What I love about that, among other things, is that if gratitude is an action, that's what that is to me. Mm-hmm. I live my life right, and that shows my. So he said, just communicate. I said, well, I cuss a little bit. He said, well, I'm going to go ahead and say that's probably okay if that's your biggest concern. The idea is to communicate.
Yep.
And then as I started to have things happen, one coincidence became 5. 5 became 10. 10 became I just couldn't deny. I felt in my heart, which is what I believe spirituality is. I don't believe it's a religion. I believe you can get it from religion, just as I can get it from doing good, doing right. Mm-hmm. I believe it's what we carry in our heart.
Yeah.
Right? Christians say you're born with it. Now they're referring to God in the Bible. I believe that, though, that we are born with that, and it's what's in our heart, and what we do with that is you just as the program teaches, you get from giving.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So in that sense, that dude opened up my whole world to a world I didn't know. And look, here's the thing. I'm gonna leave it with this on spirituality. Is I was looking through the channels, right? Dateline 2020. It's been many years ago, and I hit the info button, and it said, "Is there really a heaven?" I'm like, "Click. I'm listening. Somebody on Dateline can tell me. I need to know, right?" And I recognized. I got right to the money shot. I didn't have to sit through the build-up. I recognized the dude. I can't remember who it was. It was a national evangelist, and I'm like, she asked right there as I clicked, "Is there really a heaven?" And I'm like, damn, this dude's about to give me this long biblical spill, and he had the best answer. He said, "I don't know, I've never been."
Yep.
He said, "But what I can tell you with 100% certainty is the people that believe in something live better."
Yeah. All right. So I actually have my last couple questions, and one of them's short, and but the first one I want to do is a fun question. So. We're from Baltimore, so we're obviously right below the Mason-Dixon line, but I think most people consider Maryland Northerners. You're a Texas boy, so I want to know,
yes, sir.
What do you find weird about Northerners?
Everything. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. God, that's a great question. I've lived in Alaska and I've lived in Oregon.
Oh, okay. So you have some experience.
I do, and I'm going to be honest, and this is going to sound really funny, probably coming from me and my country accent, but people from the Minnesota area, that the accent kills me, man.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Don't you know? Don't you know we have a great accent in Minnesota?
And they're probably looking at me like, take the straw out of your mouth, though, Billy. But it really is.
They sound weird.
It kills me, man.
Yeah.
It just sounds like, oh my gosh, how do you talk like that?
Yeah. How do you not laugh at each other all day?
I mean, it's great. I've met some wonderful people in that area, and I give them the business.
Oh, yeah.
I talk to them, but they like I said, they give it right back. So,
oh yeah.
I don't know Mexican food or lack of Mexican food is pretty weird to me.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Let me take this back. One of the things, we had a conference here, a national conference, and people came from all over, and I got to talking about cooking brisket.
Yeah.
You don't cook brisket in an oven, just for the record.
No,
you put it on a smoker.
Yeah, you smoke it and you slow roast that bad boy.
There you go. Baltimore's all right in my book.
Well, see, like, I actually work at a barbecue restaurant, and your guys' barbecue is different than ours. See, we do, like, we both do like a variation of like a pit beef or like pit like smoking or whatever. But see, down south, you guys use brisket. What we use is top round. So we use a completely different.
Come on with that.
Oh, dude, it's you come up to Maryland, I'll treat you right.
I got a buddy in Maryland I went to school with who works at a treatment center up there, a guy named Jason Hensel. He's a phenomenal clinician. Mm-hmm. And when we met, we go to school at Liberty University in Virginia, and so we had to go to the campus a few times. And he said the thing they can't get up there is pecan pie. So every holiday,
our pecan pie sucks.
Yeah, it's what he said. He made a huge production about it. So every it's kind of a joke now, but every Thanksgiving I send the dude a pie. I'm like, we have these at our convenience stores, man. Like, you know. Anyway, I'm on with the pit beef, man. I'm down with some of that. So,
oh yeah.
You know.
At least we don't have boiled peanuts up here. I'll give us that.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever had one. I've seen one.
Dude, they're disgusting.
Yeah, they don't look nice.
That's like it's a Virginia thing. All right.
Okay, yeah, I've never had that.
No. Now to my serious question.
All right.
You've worked all 12 steps, yes?
I continue to, yes.
Perfect. You have to only choose one. What is your favorite step?
Step one.
Nice.
Hands down. Without step one, I don't have, 12.
I hear you.
I think that it's the most meaningful one to me.
Mm-hmm.
They're all meaningful in their own way, sure. I could tell you step 10 because that's how I keep from picking the shovel back up, so to speak, right? Step 12 is probably my favorite because I love to work with people, right? I love to take my horrible choices and poor experiences and just, for lack of a better term, the hell I went through from using, wanting to kill yourself, wanting to not live, being pissed off that you woke up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Going to sleep pissed off that God let you live this way, being even more pissed off when you wake up, those kinds of things, and being able to take that when somebody sits next to you and say, I get it, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Like, there's power in that, man. So as far as fun, that's it. But most important to me is a step one, because if I have that reservation, I'm gonna pull the trigger one day and I'm gonna test that.
Yep.
Right. I'm gonna test that somehow, some way. That thought's gonna creep up and say, "Not me."
Yeah.
Not me. I'm different, and it's been a while. I think I could do this, and you could for a day or 2 or 10, but it's coming. If you truly have a drinking problem or a drug use problem, using one successfully is the worst thing you can do, because then you're like, "Yep, they're all crazy. It's not me."
Yep.
And then before you know it, but I just know from my own experience, if I don't practice a step one somehow, some way, now today I'm at a different place with my step work. I don't sit down at night and say, okay, time to do step 10 like I did the first year.
Mm-hmm.
I made it conscious. I just do it. It's become a lifestyle.
Yep.
And that's what I try to tell my people is, look, let me give you, they all want to get to step 12 right away. And I said, look, I get it, because the reality is people give you grief in the program. We're only on step 3. You've been here 6 months. Hey, get off them, man. Let them do it at their pace, right? Mm-hmm. But the reality is, I get that too. You don't want someone 9 months in on step 2. I get that as well. So look, this is a lifestyle. It's not. It's truly, when you hear them say it's not a destination, it's a journey. Look, there's nowhere to get to.
Yep.
Right? Because I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly growing. Yeah. I'm enjoying the present. So it is truly a lifestyle. Step 4 or 5, those are assignments. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to write a list. I'm going to start a list. I'm going to finish a list. I'm going to tell someone that list. I'm going to finish telling them that list. Step 8's another list. Everything else in between and after is a lifestyle.
Yep.
I'm never going to stop step 12. If I do, God help me. If I'm never going to stop step 9, because I have living amends, right? For people I poorly treated and I can't change today. Mm-hmm. For a number of, I have living amends that I do. And I don't need to share it with everybody in the world. It's my thing to do, but it doesn't stop.
Love it.
So, I would love to say one over the other, but I think one's the most important, 12's the most fun, and they all had a place for me. Each one of them has a meaning. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I like that.
All right, Eric, is it time?
Go ahead, David, if you'd like.
To the Twitter. That's a thing.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
I added some pep on that one.
Yeah, today's question comes from Sarah Blizzard Robinson. So, Satisfied Sarah, who was on.
Oh, okay.
You weren't
on, Sarah?
You weren't on, yeah. But yeah, so it's from Sarah, and it's your favorite recovery slogan and why.
Oh, all right.
So, Dan, you get to go first, and then we'll go around.
My favorite recovery slogan. Man, there's so many. I think I like if nothing changes, nothing changes. Man, as simple as that is. There's wow, yeah, that's right. That's kind of leads into the definition of insanity, and there's so many of them. But I think just the simple, if nothing changes, nothing changes. It reminds me a little bit of my mom. I can hear her voice saying that and how just as simple as that is, how true that is. And I can wish it to change. I can want it to change. Man, if I don't do something different, it's not going to change. Mm-hmm. It's tough. Yeah, man.
Eric, you go before me. I'm still thinking.
Well, yeah, I had to actually look up online
you cheated?
a list. Of course I cheated. I'm looking.
You bastard.
So the one I found that I like the most is slip equals sobriety lost its priority. SLIP. Slip.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's my favorite at this what I'm reading this list
so
that I'm reading right now.
Cheating.
I also really like thanks for sharing.
I got
because that's our
it's so condescending.
That's our new podcast that is
segment,
that's coming out on Fridays. It's already out by the time this comes out. But thanks for sharing, David.
Yeah,
it is a little condescending.
It's so condescending.
Just like keep coming back is pretty condescending too, but it's okay.
Shit. Fuck. I can only choose one.
You can choose more than one.
Yeah.
I just gave you three.
Because I have another one, and it's really the one I should have said was principles before personality.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's my personality wants to say a lot of things that my principle rescues me from.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got two. Probably the more well-known one is there's only one thing you have to change, and that's everything. Which I've always loved that because it allows you to evolve in so many ways. It's more than just people, places, and things. It's our thinking. It's our behaviors. It's how we treat others, how we treat ourselves, how we treat the higher power of our understanding. It's an all-encompassing thing that, just like that success quote, every day, we can change something every day, and that encompasses everything. And now the second one, which is more of like a sponsorship family quote, is don't believe everything you think. And
I like that.
Yeah, that's always been a huge one for me because, and I said this on with another guest, we have these things called bad idea bats, where they just sort of flap in out of nowhere, and you just gotta swat them away from your head because we're addicts and we're human beings, and we have shitty thinking all the time, and we probably have a shitty committee in between our ears that can run us down from time to time. So you really got to be mindful of not everything you think is good for you.
And that's true. I like that.
Mm-hmm. And those are my two for at Sarah Robinson, Sarah Blizzard Robinson.
Cool.
So we would like to thank our guest Dan for joining us this evening.
Woo! Yay!
Hey, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man, it was a pleasure.
And now we'll give you a moment to, let us know where we can find you on, Twitter or Instagram or wherever you have social media or websites.
Sweet. I appreciate it. I have them all. You can find me on, Facebook and Instagram under Caldwell Counseling Center. That's CALDWELL Counseling Center. My website is caldwellcounselingcenter.net. So while my primary home is here in Houston, I also offer telehealth. It's just a matter of doing some paperwork, depending on the state you're in. That's always an option. And I just like to chat it up, man. So I'm also on Twitter. I think Caldwell Counseling Center. Maybe it's DN Caldwell Jr. Caldwell Counseling. Twitter confuses me. So I'm basically everywhere. LinkedIn, Yelp, Google, all of them. So, man, I'd love to talk to somebody again, man, anytime.
Nice. Yeah, man.
Nice.
All right. Well, here at Podcast Recovery, we are aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful services is paramount to combating addiction. We work to bring the message of recovery to every addict, wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide it. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Check us out on podcastrecovery.com. Like, share, subscribe, invite your friends. Come join us on the pod. But most importantly, everybody out there, stay safe, stay clean.